I'm Kristine.
And this is Brandon.
And this is
Talk Nerdy to Me. On today's topic, we're talking about cosplay, something that we both pretty much know a decent bit about.
Yep, and to start it off, we'll be talking about that you can buy your costumes, you can make your costumes, there's tons of patterns, there's tons of resources out there. One of the best thing I found was groups on Facebook. They have amazing people and amazing cosplayers that come together that will help you, build or, find whatever you're looking for.
Oh, most definitely. YouTube is also another great source. Sometimes it's easier to have visual aid and work along with somebody else making anything from sewing a pattern to making armor from foam, what have you.
Mm-hmm. It's like props, accessories, you can even go into your own closet and find cosplays that you had no idea that you had. That's like the best. It's like they're the cheapest, they're right there, and they come out really good,
Most cosplays are made with everyday basic clothes. If you look at movies, you look at film, you look at anything, most of the time it's whatever the studio had in some storage locker somewhere that they threw some extra stuff onto it to just make it look that much better.
Yes. And customizing things, thrift stores are a great resource to go to. Getting secondhand clothes, they're perfect. Especially if you're being experimental, where you want to tear up something, but you're not really sure. It's like just go grab something for like $1 or $2, and
The biggest misconception when it comes to cosplay is that you have to spend an outrageous amount of money to make a costume. If you don't spend $500 on a pair of leather boots because they're the exact same from, X, Y, and Z, then you're not a true cosplayer, and that's not true. As long as you have something that makes you happy, that you feel looks good for your character, or you can customize it to make it look exactly like you want it to, that's the heart of cosplay.
Yes, that I agree. If you're not having fun, then you shouldn't be doing it, and you shouldn't care what other people think either.
Best example out there that I can give is my personal experiences with the Ghostbuster community is that we don't have a set guideline for what you must wear compared to like the 501st or the Rebel Legion, the Star Wars groups that are very die-hard. Most groups will say, as long as it looks good, and you think it looks good, that's what you need. There's no guideline to say, well, you have to have this, you have to have this, or you can't be in our little group. It shouldn't be that way. It takes all the fun out of it. Even though, yes, the 501st look great in their costumes. They do a lot of great work with what they do. And, like I said, they're super passionate about what they do. But not everybody can afford, like I said, a $500 pair of boots because they're exactly from the movie.
Exactly. I do a lot of cosplaying as Peggy Carter and also as Captain Carter. Like I said, the groups are a tremendous help, and anything that we put together is great. It's like from foam shields and, it's like just, dressing in general, like the red, white, and blue, things like that. My Ike jacket from the first Avenger, it's like I pretty much made that from a green jacket that I got from an Army Navy store. It wasn't too easy, but it was a challenge, and it came out looking like an exact Ike jacket. It's like transforming a piece to look like a piece, And
another great source is talk to fellow cosplayers. When you're at a con and you see somebody else who's either in a costume like you or is in a costume you're interested in, do not be afraid to approach these people. We're all nerds, we're all geeks, we all want to talk to each other. Yes, there are rare cases where sometimes you'll meet that certain person that doesn't want to talk to you or tell you their secret to how they made something. But for the most part, you can talk to any cosplayer and ask them, well, how'd you do this? Can you give me some tips? And more than likely, they'll be more than happy to talk to you because they want to, not only just help out somebody, but they like the idea of spreading their knowledge out there.
Yes, I agree with that. It's like, for the most part, anybody that I've come in contact with, I've only been cosplaying since, I want to say, September 2016. And, like, everything has, like, grown since then. I mean, had it not been for other cosplayers and their help, I would be clueless. I'd be absolutely clueless.
It doesn't matter how long you've been cosplaying, because I've known people who've cosplayed for a couple years and they've made some beautiful stuff. And then you have people like me who've been doing this for 8-9 years now, and only just recently I'm starting to get into the more serious, more professional grade cosplays. You know, when I started out, I had a really cheesy, basically a Halloween store pirate costume, and I ran around the Renaissance Fair in Pennsylvania saying, "I'm Jack Sparrow." And yes, it was very cheesy, but I had a lot of fun with it. And then once I kind of looked at it and said, well, what can I do to expand on this? What can I do to make it better? Then I started getting more costume pieces, making my own stuff, getting stuff that looked good. And then you grow from there. As long as you have a good base and a good jumping off point, that's all you really need for a costume, you know.
Yeah, that I definitely agree with. You know, it's like you start with a couple pieces, you can always build onto it. You know, it's like you go to conventions and things, and you might be able to pick up some things as well. If not, clues on how to make it better, but you can actually pick up pieces at events. Some places do have, certain custom things, or you might find someone that can make you a specific item, because not everybody can do everything,
Oh, definitely. It's not everybody can just go out there and say, hey, I'm going to make myself a full set of leather armor for a Fallout costume, or hey, I'm going to go out there and make myself, the new Batman v Superman, bat armor, Another great place is Etsy. Etsy, a lot of times you can find people who do great work for basically what it would cost. Because as much as I love eBay for buying little things, the problem with eBay for buying costume pieces is because once people know that it's something popular or people want it, they'll charge an arm and a leg. Case in point, I've seen Ghostbuster stuff like... just little things, like we have these little yellow lifeguards that are basically an old fireman warning to say that if somebody fell down, it makes a loud noise. It's a basic piece from Ghostbusters too. Now, if you were to go to a flea market or maybe even like an old fire sale, like sometimes some fire stations do it, you could probably pick a box of them up for like $10 because they're just old, outdated, and nobody uses them anymore. But then you go on eBay, now you're looking at $75 and plus because somebody goes, oh, these are Ghostbusters related, I'm going to charge an arm and a leg for, which is a little unfair. Just because something is either popular or people want it shouldn't mean you have to make more than what it's worth. I mean, yes, there is the idea that you should have 150% markup on anything you make to make up for as a profit. But when you look at a lot of this stuff, people are doing 200-300 times what they should do. So it's like, it kind of hurts cosplayers, and it also kind of gives a bad name to people who are resellers, I guess if you want to call them, people who find these pieces and then resell them, because now people are thinking, well, you're going to charge me an arm and a leg, or if you're selling it for so cheap, it's probably a broken piece of junk.
Exactly. It's like some things are just so expensive, and that can actually turn people off to cosplaying because they see they want to pick up this piece and that prop and, this leather thing. And then it's like, oh my gosh, you get everything into like a shopping basket or something. And it's like almost $1,000. And you're like, I can't do that. I can't cosplay. And then,
Well, that's like with the Ghostbusters stuff. Like a full-size proton pack like I have would cost, sometimes depending on who you talk to, they're like, oh, that's going to cost you between $1,500 and almost $2,000. Then you can talk to some people who have built theirs from nothing, and they're like, I spent a couple $100. But then you look at, again, eBay sellers. Now they want to sell you a proton pack that may not have all the features for just as much as one that you could build yourself with everything in it that you want to customize and cheaper. Because everyone I ever show the pack to, they go, well, that had to cost you a lot of time and a lot of money. Not really. The worst part is finding what you want. If you want screen accuracy, you're going to pay a little extra to find basically old computer parts from the 80s, which they use for most of the build. But if you want just something for fun to say, hey, I got a proton pack and it's in my man cave or my woman cave, then you don't have to go all out. That's the great thing about cosplay. Again, like we said, you don't have to spend an arm and a leg to make a great costume. You can go to a thrift store, you can go to flea markets, you can have your mom or your grandmother help you learn how to use a sewing machine and make it yourself, and you can probably make it 10 times better than half these resellers on eBay are charging you the arm and the leg for.
That is true. And, it's like with finding others that you have stuff in common with. Like you might be, a whiz at making props or something, and then someone else might be great at sewing. So it's like you get together and, it's like you can form like this bond, and you can, start sewing or learn how to sew and teach them how to do props and, a little trade-off here and there. I mean, take for instance, my first Captain Carter build. I used three shirts. I think I got them from Foreman Mills, red, white, and blue. They were $2 a piece. And then my pants were on the clearance rack for $5, which I just tea-stained to them. I didn't do anything special with them. But the shirts, it's like I just formed them together and, and then I made my shield from like a piece of foam board, which looked really great in pictures. And I think the whole costume ended up costing like under $12 for everything.
Exactly. That's the great thing, like you're saying. As long as you like how it looks, that's the most important part. You shouldn't be cosplaying because you want to impress everyone else. Yes, you do want to have that sense of you want to impress people, like look what I can do with my own two hands. But you don't want to be out there thinking that you're going to become the next Yaya Han or any of these like super famous rich cosplayers that got famous and again rich off of this stuff. Because this is really supposed to be a hobby more than a means of living. I mean, yes, I'm sure there are people out there that this has helped them go into the world. I'm sure filmmakers or prop designers have seen the stuff that people have made and put them into different jobs and different ways to grow in what they love. But don't go out there with that mindset, because when you go out there with that mindset and you go through all the costume contests and you go through shows and you start to get this like feeling of like, well, maybe my costumes aren't great because I didn't win that contest, or people aren't really wanting to take pictures with me or asking me for my picture. Is there something wrong? Don't think that way. We all have a starting point where we all think, man, my costume looks horrible. Why did I even decide to do this? I'm going to give up. But then once you find that one person out there that goes, dude, I love your costume. My God, that looks great. How did you do this? Then you start to realize that do it for yourself, do it for fans of what your costume is, and have fun.
Now, on that note, too, it's like a lot of people, cosplay is, superheroes, like, things that are already out there. What the cool part is of cosplay is you can create your own character. You don't have to be something out of a comic book. You don't have to be a superhero. You don't have to be a supervillain. You can be whatever you want. That's like the best part. And some of those costumes actually come out the best, because we all know what Batman looks like. We all know what, Wonder Woman looks like, But when you create your own, it's like people are like, what is that? That is awesome. Can I have your picture? Because they're curious. It's like, how did you come up with this?
And on that note too, don't be afraid to do a costume that you think 1,000 other people are doing. Just because you go and you're like, oh, I really love Batman. I want to do the newer style Batman costume. And you go to a con, you see 500 other people in the same armor. Don't get discouraged. Because the great thing about cosplay and the great thing about comic books, if you really look into it, is there's multiple universes. So just imagine this is just a crossover event where every single Batman from all the different universes are on together in one section. That way, you don't get discouraged, because you really shouldn't get discouraged. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to events and different things, and I'm like, great, I'm number 1,300 Ghostbuster at New York Comic Con. Or, oh, look at that, I'm number 7 Burgess Meredith Penguin. Because if you get that mindset, then you really start to doubt yourself. The only good thing about that is it makes you want to think outside the box and think, well, what character have I not seen done for a while? Or what seems like an older character that maybe not a lot of people know? Like I said with Burgess Meredith, like I might have been a little extreme with what I said, but I went to New York Comic Con. Adam West was there. I figured, I don't have the physique for Batman. I want to try Penguin. But plus, being a villain is more fun sometimes, too. So, I had my costume and I had another guy's costume. And it was awesome because it's like we're two different versions. He was, he had a different color scheme. I had a different color scheme, but we're both very much the same. And that makes it more fun because then you talk back and forth. You're like, well, where'd you get that prosthetic nose? Oh, where'd you get that old umbrella? Stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. And that's a great way to, make some friends and learn more as you go. It's like you might be learning from them. They might actually be learning from you. It's taking a chance and getting out there,
Oh, yeah. Well, that's like how we became friends is we met each other because you were dressed as Cheryl from Archer. And Archer's one of my favorite TV shows of all time. And it got me because I saw you with the rubber cement, and then you had the bruise around the neck of the handprint, and that's when I was like, oh my God, you're Carol, Cheryl, whatever. And I was like, I have to talk to you, and that's how we talked and got to know each other, and you weren't that impressed with my Ghostbuster stuff.
You were awesome. I was like, oh my gosh, I was like, my ringtone is Ghostbusters, so I'm like... I like literally squealed. It was great. It was
the whole time we were talking. I'm like, please, somebody call your phone. Just some random person, even if it's a telemarketer. let's just have the theme go off.
I said that was actually a fun build. Archer Dreamland was coming out, so this was like maybe a week before it came out that we were at the Ocean City Con. And I actually did like a vintage play off of it. Now there's something you can do, like. You can go through an era with something. It's like if you like 50s, you like 60s, you like 80s, you can customize pretty much anything out there to fit that style. But I took a chance with going, as, 40 style, Cheryl Tunt, and it went over like really well. I was like so happy with the outcome, and people were recognizing me. It's like I get there and I'm like, oh, I need the bruise. So I go over to the face painting booth and I was like, yeah, can you, give me a bruise like somebody strangled me? And they did that. And I was like, how much is that? And they're like, it's free. And I was like, oh, what? I was like, that's too cool, It's like part of the costume. I mean, with painting, people sometimes prefer face painting over mask, At some cons, you actually can't be fully covered with your face, It's like they don't like that, for security reasons and everything. So it's like there's tons of options to look into, though, whether it's face paint or, it's like a half a mask, like things like that. It's like there's oodles of things out there. But, yes, getting, it's like talking, with Ghostbuster things and, it's like the Cheryl thing and... actually, I've upgraded like big time because of a cosplayer, a shout out time. This one goes to Clara Cosmea, who's actually from Canada, and she does an amazing Cheryl Tunt. If you look up Cheryl Tunt cosplay, she's like the first one on there. Well, her bottle for the rubber cement was like totally customized, and I was like, I've got to get that label. I was like, that's what I'm missing. So I took a chance. I had found her on Twitter. I'm like, it was an old tweet. I took a chance. I just commented on it. And it's like, right there and then, she like sent me like a close-up photo of it. And I was like, this is amazing. And then ever since then, it's like we talk back and forth, about different cosplays and everything. And it's really cool. It's like I'm hoping one day it's like she'll get down to like New York Comic Con, or maybe I'll go up to one of the bigger ones, and it's like we can meet. So you can have cosplaying friends from all over the place. I mean, like I said, the Facebook groups are great. It's like there's tons of cosplayers all over the world, and they're all looking for certain things. It's like we know someone that does like 3D stars for Captain America and, shields and like all this other kind of stuff. So it's like you really want to find people, meet people, and go from there, because then you can find what you're looking for.
On that note, we were not paid to put that advertising out there. The other thing is, the one important thing you must remember about conventions with cosplay is a lot of them don't like weapons. That's a big thing. If you're going to do a character like Deadpool and you have swords and guns, if you're going to do Fallout and you think, oh, I'm going to build a gigantic minigun or a rocket launcher, remember, a lot of shows do have strict policies nowadays. They'll either tell you we have to piece tie it, or don't take it out if you have it. If you have BB guns you're using as a base for a gun, they'll take a magazine out. If it's a magazine loader, they want to make sure you have nothing in the chamber and they won't let you have it. Or specifically with me, I made a minigun that had a battery in it so I could actually spin the barrels when I pulled the trigger. I was told flat out you can't bring it into the show. They don't trust the idea of having anything with a motor in it or anything that moves because they think you're going to do something. Even if you're not, even if you're the most innocent person in the world, do not get mad at these shows. They're just doing the protection of everybody at the con. The last thing you need is two people to have a fight and then somebody pulls out something and does something that shouldn't happen at a show. Remember, we're all friends, people.
Exactly. When you go into, any kind of con, you can go on their website and they will have a weapons policy. So it's like, check that out, because some kinds of metal for Captain America's shield, you can't get it into places, so you don't want to spend all that money and then not be able to use it, It's like there are certain things like that, and, a lot of things like foam is pretty well.
Foam's okay.
Foam is good. It's like I've never had any problems getting foam into places.
I think they just want to double check and make sure that it actually is fully foam, that you don't have something hidden in it.
Yeah, like you don't have a metal rod. Yeah, don't do anything like that. Don't try to cover it with foam and be like, okay, yeah, it's foam. It's like, they'll check. They could tell the weight of a regular foam sword or dagger or something to something that has And
again, don't get mad at these people. They're doing their jobs. They're told what to do. They don't own the convention and telling you flat out. Like, I've gone to the Pennsylvania Renaissance Fair as Jack Sparrow, like I said, and I had a painted, redone Disney store sword. It was the same size and all that. They piece tied it because they were like, even if it's plastic, we don't want to have anybody be allowed to pull a knife out or pull a sword out. So they piece tied. The only thing they let me take in was my pistol because it was a fully plastic pistol. Remember, if you're also going to do guns, a lot of times they're going to say you have to have the orange tip. So if you're going to customize and paint your guns, you're going to either need A, orange duct tape that you can tape to the front of it if they say something to you, or B, just leave the orange tip on the plastic. Trust me, it doesn't take away from photos. It doesn't make it look cheesier. It's just safety for everyone.
Yes, and that orange tip in any photos can be photoshopped. Really easy. So it's like, don't worry about that,
Or if you're really worried about it, take pictures outside of shows. I've seen hundreds of pictures outside of conventions and stuff like that where people either take the duct tape back off of their guns, or they'll use a black Sharpie to color in the orange real quick, Or even better yet, if your character really doesn't need to pull their gun out and, stick it up to somebody's head because that's what the character does, just leave it holstered. It just makes it just that much easier that you're not going to get hassled. I don't know if it's the right word, but pretty much have the convention staff come up to you and say, hey, what are you doing?
Yes, and also for cosplay, too, don't run up to somebody with props and grab their props. That is not cool on any level. If you wish to see something, you may ask them, may I see that? Or, it's like, can I feel the weight of it? It's like, is that, an actual, replica of something? It's like, don't touch it. Don't bang into it. There's been so many people that I know that do Captain America, and their shields literally look like they went through war when they go to cons, because there's people, when it's on their back, people come up to it, they punch it, they try to hit it with lightsabers, they try to do all sorts of things, and then they have to repolish the whole thing, sometimes even repaint it because it's so bad. So it's like, you want to be careful. Some of those props, even foam props, are very delicate, and it's cool to ask, but it's like, don't just run up and grab somebody's stuff. It's like, that is no.
Now, this shouldn't even need to be said, but it has to be put out there, especially since we're starting this podcast. Do not grab anybody. Remember, cosplay is not consent. That's the truest thing you can say. Just because a girl is dressed as a character, like the new Harley Quinn with the booty shorts, does not mean she wants you to come up to her and slap her on the behind, all right? That is not what she's doing. She's having fun. No character, I don't care if you're a man, woman, whatever, you do not have the right to go up and grab anybody or touch anybody unless either you are dating that person or you're friends with that person and this is something you've done before and it's a joke. I can't tell you how many times I've gone to shows and seen these creepy old men grabbing these teenage girls or these 20-something-year-old girls, and it's disheartening. It's nobody wants that to happen. Nobody wants to be touched inappropriately. Especially when you're at a place where you think you're going to have fun and everything. It's stuff you like, and then something like that happens. It's not cool. It really isn't.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. It's like people are there to have fun. They're not there to be groped or touched. It's not that kind of community or anything. It's like, no. It's like, keep your hands to yourself. It's like it.
No, like
No.
For example, Deadpool cosplayers, they always do something, creepy or sexually charged or whatever you want to call it, but you have to ask. Like if you're a Deadpool cosplayer and you see like Rogue or somebody and they're dressed kind of scantily or whatever, and you want to do like a comedy picture, ask first and don't ask creepily. Yes, I know you're Deadpool, but don't ask it as he would. Just go up and say, hey, I want to do kind of a funny picture. Would you mind? And most of the time, I'm sure most people would have no problem with it unless you're doing something really inappropriate.
Speaking of inappropriate, cosplaying is Cheryl Tunt and getting strangled by everybody. First, it's like a dream come true, and I actually allow it. That's like the beauty part. I had somebody, my friend Holly, that does an amazing version of Wonder Woman. At first, she was like barely touching me. Another cosplayer, he's like, no, really choke her. And it was like one of those great pictures, I mean, it came out great. So, I mean, there are people, it's like if you're allowing it, it's like, go for it. It's like, you don't have to be creepy about it. But people that, know the character or something like that, they'll play along and they'll love it, They'll love it.
Oh, yeah. And let's see what, like you were saying with props and, don't just grab stuff. Don't just do that. That's another thing is when you're at a con, being mindful of your surroundings. I've had, like my proton pack. This is a perfect example I can give for this. It sticks out a good, 3 to 5 more inches back more than where my back is or however big it really sits. And constantly I've had stuff where I'm trying to turn in a convention and I hit somebody or I run into somebody. I've had pieces broken off because other people aren't paying attention too. But always be mindful. If you have a scabbard with your sword, make sure you have your hand on it so you can kind of point it down a little so you're not jamming into somebody. Last thing you need is to try and turn around and take a picture and smack some kid in the face by mistake. And you also want to make sure you're mindful because you want to protect your own stuff. There's nothing worse than being in the middle of a con and your stuff's broken. Or, you got your belt snagged on something, it popped off, and now you're like, great, now I have to do duct tape and super glue to get this thing to stay together.
You never fear. At a lot of cosplay cons, they actually have a place or a booth that will fix cosplays. But you never want to leave home without your duct tape because you never know what's going to happen. Because that is the worst. If you lose a handle, like I've lost a handle on a shield before. It's like when I found out like E6000 doesn't work with aluminum. I was doing a photo shoot, but we were like almost at the tail end of it, so it was all right, and I had duct tape with me, so it's like we made it work for the rest of the shoot, and everything came out fine. So it's like it's gonna happen, It's like don't expect everything to be perfect because any little thing, if you're not mindful of your props, you could run into someone, you could run into something, pieces break off, things like that, and then you're like, so you just reattach and you go on,
Now, depending on the character you play, might work in your favor. If you're doing Mad Max or some kind of post-apocalyptic kind of thing where everything's supposed to be thrown together, the more you fix your stuff with duct tape and super glue and it looks a little funky, just gives it that much more appeal. I've had belts that I've tried putting foam on to make it look like armor and it just pops off and I just duct tape the whole thing together and just say, yeah, that works for today.
Yes. I mean, it's like sometimes it just happens. I mean, I'm sure every cosplayer can tell you stories of things that happen,
Oh, yeah.
Whether a thread came out and the whole sleeve came off, to, I lost a half a shield in battle by accident.
Or I bent over to pick something up off the ground and ripped my pants in half, and then I had nothing but my butt cheeks flapping in the wind at the Renaissance Fair all day.
That is quite true. It happens.
Well, on the note of my butt cheeks, this is the end of our podcast. We thank you for joining us. We'll be back again real soon with another topic for you. If you believe that you know somebody, or if you're somebody out there that thinks that you should have a shout out for a cosplay, you can write to us at njjsparrow1121@gmail.com, and you might find yourself in a future episode of the podcast. Again, this has been
Kristine
and Brandon, and this is
Talk Nerdy to Me.